You are holding a plastic disc that is 2 millimeters thick. It weighs 16 grams, it costs almost nothing to make, and pressed into its surface. At a scale invisible to the naked eye is an entire album, every instrument, every vocal, every moment of silence between the notes, and the only thing reading it is light, not a needle, not a magnet, not a physical contact of any kind, a laser beam thinner than a human hair, bouncing off a surface and turning what it sees into sound. This is not magic, but the first time someone explains it to you properly, it feels like it should be. The compact disc was introduced to the world on August 17, 1982. It was a joint development between Sony and Philips, two companies that had been working on digital audio storage since the mid-1970s. Before the CD, music was stored on vinyl records. Vinyl works through physical contact. A needle sits in a groove cut into the surface of the record. As the disc spins, the groove vibrates the needle. Those vibrations become electrical signals. Those signals become sound. It works, but it has problems. Every time the needle touches the groove, it damages it slightly. Play a record enough times and the sound degrades. Dust gets in the groove. The needle can skip. The record can warp. The engineers at Sony and Philips wanted something different. They wanted a format where nothing ever touched the data, where the music could be read without wearing it down, where you could play the same disc 1,000,000 times and it would sound identical every single time. The answer was light. To understand how a CD works, you first need to understand how it stores information. A CD does not store music as a wave. It does not store a physical impression of the sound the way vinyl does. It stores music as numbers, specifically, as a very long sequence of ones and zeros, binary code, the same language that runs every computer, every smartphone, every digital device ever built. When music is recorded digitally, the sound wave is measured thousands of times per second. Each measurement is converted into a number. That number is expressed in binary, and those binary numbers are what gets pressed into the surface of the disc. A standard music CD samples audio 44,100 times per second. For each sample, it records a 16-bit number. That means 65,536 possible values for each measurement. At that resolution, the human ear cannot detect any difference between the digital recording and the original sound. Now, how does the disc actually hold those ones and zeros? The surface of a CD is not flat. Under a microscope, it looks like a very long spiral track, starting from the center of the disc and spiraling outward to the edge. If you could unroll that spiral into a straight line, it would stretch for approximately 38 kilometers. Along that track are two types of surface features, flat areas called lands and small raised bumps called pits. The transition between a land and a pit, or between a pit and a land, represents a 1. A flat continuous surface with no transition represents a 0. That is it. The entire storage system of a compact disc. Pits and lands, ones and zeros, billions of microscopic bumps pressed into a polycarbonate plastic disc. Now here is where the laser comes in. Inside every CD player is a laser diode. It produces a beam of infrared light at a wavelength of 780 nanometers. That beam is focused down to a spot size of about 7 micrometers, which is smaller than a single bacterium. That laser beam is aimed at the underside of the disc as it spins. The disc spins at between 200 and 500 revolutions per minute, constantly adjusting its speed, so the laser always reads data at the same rate regardless of whether it is near the center or the outer edge. When the laser hits a flat land surface, the light reflects cleanly back to a detector. The detector reads this as a strong signal. When the laser hits a pit, the light scatters. The reflection is weaker. The detector reads this as a different signal. The transitions between strong and weak signals are counted. Those counts are converted back into ones and zeros. Those ones and zeros are decoded back into the 44,100 samples per second. Those samples are converted back into an analog electrical signal. That signal goes to your amplifier. Your amplifier drives your speakers, and you hear music. All of that happens in real time, continuously. From the moment you press play, how much data can a CD hold? A standard 74-minute audio CD stores approximately 650 megabytes of data. Some discs extend to 80 minutes and approximately 700 megabytes. In 1982, when the CD launched, 650 megabytes was an almost unimaginable amount of storage. The most common home computers at the time had floppy disks that held 2 megabytes. A single CD held the equivalent of over 500 floppy disks. The reason the 74-minute capacity was chosen is one of the more debated stories in audio engineering history. The most widely repeated version, cited by the engineer Kees Immink, who worked on the CD standard, is that Norio Oga, the president of Sony, insisted the disc be large enough to hold Beethoven's Ninth Symphony in a single uninterrupted playback. The longest known recording of the Ninth at the time was 74 minutes, and that became the standard, a classical music benchmark, embedded into the physical capacity of one of the most important consumer formats ever made. The CD also has a remarkable built-in error correction system. Because pits and lands are so small, even tiny manufacturing defects or dust particles can cause misreadings. The engineers who designed the CD format anticipated this. They built an error correction system called cross-interleaved Reed-Solomon coding directly into the way data is stored on the disk. This means that even if a small section of the disk is damaged or unreadable, the player can often reconstruct the missing data mathematically. A scratch CD can still play perfectly, not because the laser reads through the scratch, but because the error correction system fills in what was lost. This is why a CD with light surface scratches often still plays without any audible problems. The data is being reconstructed in real time. The music you hear may not be entirely read from the disc. Parts of it may be calculated. The CD format was officially standardized in a document called the Red Book. Published by Sony and Philips in 1980, every CD and CD player ever made follows this standard. A disc pressed in Japan in 1983 will play on a player manufactured in South Korea in 2019. The format never changed. The standard held. That is an extraordinary achievement in consumer technology. Most formats become obsolete within a decade. The CD specification survived over 40 years without a fundamental revision. So what is still reading CDs today? Car manufacturers continued installing CD players as standard equipment well into the 2010s. Many audio professionals still use CDs as a reliable archival format because a properly stored disc can last over 100 years without data degradation. Recording studios use laser-etched to distribute reference mixes. Software companies still ship certain products on disc, and a significant portion of the global music market, particularly in Japan, still generates substantial physical CD sales every year. The laser that reads a CD is also the direct ancestor of the laser that reads a DVD, a Blu-ray disc, and the laser systems used in industrial cutting and medical equipment. The principles established by Sony and Philips engineers in the late 1970s became the foundation of an entire branch of optical technology. A plastic disc, 2 millimeters thick. A spiral track 38 kilometers long. Billions of microscopic pits. A laser beam smaller than a bacterium, and 44,100 measurements of sound every single second. You put it in a player, you press play, and light reads music.